Hi guys, I'm Lee from Intentional Thinking and I'm a master NLP practitioner, a clinical hypnotherapist, and I have this huge interest in neuroplasticity. And I'd just like to officially welcome you on the other side, joining me in my hub. So not only do I help people collapse old beliefs and patterns that no longer serve them, I also teach neuroscience using these technologies through coaching and how you can change your brain and think intentionally. I want to share a couple of things with you today just to spark your thinking about your thinking. There are two types of trauma: big trauma or little trauma. Now, an example of a big trauma could be if you were facing the threat of fire, like I did back in 2009, February 2009, in the Black Saturday bushfires. Or maybe you're in a situation that was life-threatening and you faced a reality that you were near death, like I also did in 2008. So that's big trauma. Little trauma has just as much impact as big trauma. However, it could come from someone who tells you straight out that they have no capacity to love you anymore. Or if you've been bullied by someone, or forced or manipulated by someone significant in your life. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only one that has been the victim of all those and more. But here's what I've learned. Humans are pretty good at storing information. In fact, we're brilliant at it. And the way we process our information is based on the emotions and the meaning that we place on the external environment at the time of the trauma. So let me just rewind a little bit and take you back to an incredible origin. Over the past 100 years, we've become to know more and more about the subconscious mind. And it's actually exciting to know that we still continue to grow our knowledge. Now, NLP, which is my godsend tool, was actually developed by Richard Brandler and John Grindler, who believed it was actually possible to identify the patterns and thoughts and behaviors of successful individuals and to teach those attributes to others. Now, here's the key. If these guys had the tools to teach the different patterns and thoughts and behavior, I became interested in wanting to know more. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this is because the light bulb went off in my head. Everything I knew that existed, the conditioning and the programming up until that very point in my life was learned from someone else's bias. I was conditioned and I was programmed how to be polite to others from someone else's value. I was conditioned and I was programmed to share everything I had to let others always go first from someone else's expectations. I also learned not to speak up and use my own voice. And when I became an adult, these programs and conditioning that others actually installed inside of me no longer worked because I'm not that little kid anymore. And through a whole lot of experiences and a whole lot of life stuff that went on for me, I became afraid of men. I had no self-worth, no self-love. I hid all my feminine energy, and the list goes on and on and on. I had tons and tons of shitty programming, let me tell you, that did not serve me. So it's sort of like I was using a 1990 computer with all the data that I had collected over the years in 2024. So no wonder the computer defaulted all the time. I didn't know how to reboot, nor did I know how to upgrade. I came to a dot point in my life not knowing who I had actually become to be. I didn't know who I was anymore. And a girlfriend, thank goodness, reached out to me, who just cleared herself from breast cancer. And she said, hey Lee, you should check out this stuff that I'm learning. And so, absolutely desperate, I went off into the exciting study of NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnotherapy. What a trajectory. So much has changed in my life knowing these tools. And these are the tools that I'm hoping to pique your interest in as well. I was recently employed to discover what the best thoughts and the best behavioral patterns were for a genius engineer. And what I would do then is interview all the candidates that wanted to work beside this genius engineer. Now, because of all the learnings that I had learned from NLP, I had the formula. I had the formula to know what the genius engineer actually was. So just for a moment, consider cloning. Remember Dolly the sheep? How they had Dolly, the original, and then they just created an identical of Dolly. Well, that's what I went out and did. I had my original, which was the genius engineer. And I was actually looking for candidates who were naturally identical with that engineer. And that's who the engineer wanted to work with. People who were exactly like him. So I had to discover how close to each of the candidates were in order to align this person naturally with the person who is the genius. Fascinating, right? So the study of NLP and timeline therapy came from an interest around thoughts and behaviors. And it all began when Richard Brandler was a student at the University of California. And he had this growing curiosity, just like me, and he contacted this lecturer called John Grindler. Now, he was actually a linguistics lecturer at the time. And together, they studied this thing called Gestalt therapy. Now, I won't go into that right now. That's another whole moment. That's incredible, that stuff. But they also observed a second therapist, and that's Virginia Satir. And they produced what they termed was the meta model. And it's the meta model that I used specifically to discover the natural thoughts and behaviors of each of the candidates on how closely they linked up with the genius. And the meta model enabled me to gather all this information, challenge all these minds, and challenge all their underlying thinking, and challenge all their underlying thinking. No wonder businesses are using these tools to interview people, right? Now, the subconscious mind is this fascinating part of our brain that drives our behavior. And it's responsible for every single thing that you and I do. Every thought, every feeling, every action comes from the subconscious mind. In fact, science have discovered that 95% of all thought, all emotion and learning occurs in the unconscious mind. So that means, if you do the math, only 5% comes from our conscious brain. Now that's actually a lot to digest. So this is a really good thing to be curious about how we go about our day and how we go about our thinking and where we get our patterns from and why we're using these patterns. So I'm curious, just quickly, do you think you are living mindfully, which is consciously, from that 5%? Or are you living unconsciously from the patterns and the behaviors that have been shared with you? Okay, conditioned. So let's understand the unconscious mind's only job is to keep you safe. It's a very, very basic system, and we often refer to it as a reptilian brain. Hands up if you've heard of the reptilian brain or the caveman brain. Awesome. You're picking up what I'm putting down. All right. So the idea behind the reptilian brain is that if a saber-toothed tiger is around the corner and is just about to jump out, our unconscious mind knows exactly what to do. It just automatically kicks in and it will start running, okay? So the unconscious mind will always have a reserve of energy stored in your body, ready to use that in that life-threatening situation, because it's a very, very loyal servant and it just automatically kicks into that. So my question is, how does the unconscious mind know that there is danger? Well, it knows by using our 5 senses. And it collects the data from all the experience outside of us. And to interpret this information, we need to add feelings and emotions. We need to internalize what is out there to make sense of it in here. Now, I've got a quick activity with you. What I want you to do is, in a moment, you're going to look around the room and find as many things that you can in the room that are green. And I want you to just keep adding them as quickly as you can, because you're only going to have 5 seconds to do it, okay? So stay still where you are, just turning your head. You're going to be looking around for all the things that are green around you, okay? Now, when I ask you to stop, you're going to come back and you're going to look at the screen directly, okay? You're not going to take your eyes off the screen, and I'm going to ask you to do or create a result for me, okay? But you're not allowed to look away. You have to stay. Are you committed? You've got to stay committed to the vision, all right? So you're going to find as many things that are green in the room. 5 seconds. You ready? Go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop. Okay, gazing at me. Give it to me. Right, now I'm going to ask you, how many things did you see that were purple? Okay, now immediately you would have gone into some sort of a stress, because it's really difficult to do this when your filters are switched off from looking for purple things. Your filters were switched on only looking for green things. Because around us, there are 2.2 million bits of external information that gets dumped in front of our senses every single second. 2.2 million bits, 2.2 million bits, 2.2 million bits. And it's no wonder that we can think that we can be overwhelmed with all this information if our filters actually welcomed all of this information. But what our filters do is a really good thing. It only selects 126 bits of familiar information. Note the word familiar, okay? You can't see what you don't know. So no wonder you didn't see all the purple in the room, because I asked your filters specifically to look out for the green things. Now, a really big takeaway I learned during this study and this implementation of NLP is a truth bomb. And I want to share this with you. Are you ready? You're really ready? I had to let go of blaming others for the lack in my life. Nor could I blame my circumstances anymore. No one has the power to actually trigger me, and no one has the power to trigger you. No event has the power to trigger us. There is nothing outside of us that can actually change our mood, having me feel grumpy or mad or sad or hurt or happy, for that example. Everything in our life is a reflection of a choice that you and I made. There is no external button someone can press to get me cross. There's not, is there? You choose to give meaning to that person or that experience. And that's the trigger. You, by giving it meaning. Yes, you. You made that choice. And you made that choice because of your conditioning and because of your programming and by the way you looked at things around you. So if you want a different result from people bugging you, annoying you, getting you upset, stopping you, holding you back, keeping you stuck, come and understand some things about your programming to reveal your truth. The root cause of the upset doesn't come from external things. It comes from the programs that are stored in our mind. And if we change these programs, they would change us. They change our reality. And we're not seeing people as they are, but as you are. Have a think about that. If you need to rewind that part, have a think, let it sink in. So I'm really looking forward to serving everyone in this incredible community. So thank you. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for jumping on board, coming for a ride and digging deeper into ways that we can all change our brain. I'll see you inside the group.